Hello everyone, welcome once again to Tsp Delight. Today I'm going to show you how to make the perfect waakye stew. If you've ever eaten waakye, you know the importance of having your waakye stew on point. So today I'm going to show you the exact way of getting your waakye stew to be exactly or even better than the street style. If you're new to this channel, this is Tsp Delight. My name is Debbie. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for the love. If you haven't subscribed, please click on the subscribe button as well as the little bell so that whenever I post a video, you will be instantly notified. We're going to be in the kitchen for a while today because making the best waakye stew demands a lot of patience and attention. So no time to waste, let's get straight into it. For your ingredients, you need your ginger, some Scotch bonnet pepper, garlic. In here I've got my natural spices, rosemary, cloves, coriander seeds, some anise seeds, 1 star anise. I'm using only one because it's kind of very strong, and yeah, I just need just a little for a kick for the stew. I've got some black peppercorns, some bay leaves, nutmeg, black pepper powder. I've also got some onions. I always say for your food to be flavorful, you need lots of onions. So I've got some red onions and white onions, pointed peppers, fresh tomatoes. I've also got my assortment of meat. To save time for this recipe, I parboiled my cow skin and cow leg as it takes longer to cook. So be sure to parboil it first if you're going to use cow skin or cow leg, okay? I've got my salt, my shrimp seasoning, and my vegetable seasoning. You can use any seasoning of your choice, some tomato puree, plum tomato, and of course some oil. Don't forget to check the description box for the exact quantities of ingredients, okay? I'll begin by chopping 3 white and 2 red onions for blending with my ginger, garlic, and my 2 Scotch bonnet peppers. I'll transfer them into my blender and add my natural spices. Bear in mind that this is waakye and the natural spices you see here is not a lot. It's natural and once combined gives a lot of flavor, so don't fret. I get a lot of people concerned about how much natural spices I'm using, but trust me, you need to try to understand what I'm talking about, okay? And as long as it's natural, it's very safe and healthy to use, okay? I'll then set about 3 cups of my blended ingredients aside for later use and use the rest to marinate my meat. I'll transfer my meat to a big pot and season it with half of my shrimp seasoning and a bit of my vegetable seasoning, my black pepper, bay leaves, some salt, and now it's time to add the rest of my blended ingredients. I will then rinse my blender with some water to make sure that I use all of the blended ingredients in there. I don't want to leave any to chance at all. I'll set my meat on fire and start prepping my fresh tomatoes and pointed peppers for blending. Once I've transferred it to the blender, I'll add my plum tomatoes and blend them all together. I don't blend it to be very smooth as it's waakye and you want to leave some bits in there, okay? Once it's ready, I'll set that aside and move on to the meat. Now the meat has come to a boil, so I'll stir it together to make sure that all the ingredients marry beautifully. Cover it and allow it to cook until my preferred tenderness. After a total of 50 minutes, I've achieved my preferred tenderness. It all depends on you, on how tender you want your meat to be. So I can't really tell you how long to cook it. Just cook it until your preferred tenderness, okay? I'll separate the meat from the stock to prevent the stock from sticking onto the meat once it's ready for use later. I'll then separate my goat meat from the rest of the meat as I'm going to fry that separately. I also separated my cow skin as it became too soft. In a wider pot, I'll heat up some sunflower oil to fry my goat meat. For extra flavor, I'll cut 1 large red onion and add it to my meat, and that gives it a lot of flavor. And the aroma in my kitchen now, oh, you need to be here to smell it. It's simply amazing. I'm not frying all my meat because I want to enjoy both worlds, so I'll fry some and leave some, and the combination takes your stew to a whole new level. Once the meat is golden brown, I'll set it aside for later, as well as the onions. Don't throw it away, okay? We're going to incorporate it later. I'll then come in with my tomato puree. I've started the stew process now. So this is me adding my tomato puree to the same oil I used to fry the meat. Don't throw the oil out because it gives it a lot of flavor. We are all about flavor today, okay? Once that is frying, I'll chop up 2 white onions and add it to the tomato puree already frying, okay? Stir it to combine and allow this to fry for about 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes now, and do you remember the ginger blend mix we set aside for later? This is the time to add it. Add this and stir it to combine with the rest of the ingredients and allow it to fry for another 10 minutes. As that is frying, remember the onion we set aside as well. I'll blend it with some of the tomato puree I've already blended, which will go into the stew later. If you want to achieve the best waakye stew, follow this process and you will thank me later. It's been 10 minutes, so I'll go in with the blended tomato puree and fresh tomatoes and the pointed pepper and the tomatoes I blended with the fried onions. I'll stir it together to combine, partially cover it and allow it to cook on medium-low heat for another 20 minutes. Don't forget to stir your stew intermittently to prevent it from burning, okay? After 20 minutes, the stew is cooking beautifully. I'll then add the stock from my meat. The stock is a good way of incorporating a lot of flavor to your stew, so don't skip this part, okay? Stir it and cover it and allow it to cook on medium-low heat for another 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, just look at that, it's cooking beautifully. But every time you come in to stir, be sure to turn your heat to very low heat to prevent the splatter from the stew burning your skin, okay? At this point, I'll add half of my shrimp seasoning, the half that was left, my star anise, 1 bay leaf and my nutmeg. Stir it to combine, cover it and allow it to cook on medium-low heat for another 10 minutes. Our stew is coming together beautifully and I'm very happy with the results. After 10 minutes, I'll add my bicarbonate of soda. This will take away the tanginess. If you do watch my other videos, you realize that for every stew I make, I add this to take away all the tanginess from the stew, okay? Because stews splatter a lot, I always make sure I clean as I go, as well as use a splatter to prevent a lot of mess in my kitchen. After another 5 minutes, I'll go in with my cumin powder, some salt to season, taste for salt before you add it, okay? As well as my fennel powder. This adds a whole lot of flavor to your waakye stew. You can omit it if you want, however, it adds a lot of flavor, so try not to omit it, okay? After another 5 minutes, I'll add my fried goat meat as well as the rest of my assorted meat. Stir it to combine, cover it and allow it to simmer on very low heat. So at this point, there is less work to do as you're allowing the stew to simmer on very low heat so that the juices from your meat will be released into your stew to marry with the stew, and this will help you attain maximum flavor. One of the secrets to meals is being very patient, especially with stews. Once you add your meat, turn it to very low heat and allow it to simmer through until the end. But don't forget to keep stirring it or else your stew will burn. And once your stew burns, most of the work you've done here will only be in vain. So keep an eye on it, okay? So at this point, I'll just leave it to do its own magic. Let it simmer through beautifully without rushing it at all. It's been another 25 minutes of simmering and the oil has settled beautifully on top of our stew, and that means our stew is about ready. I came in with my cow skin later, as I mentioned before. It was very soft, so I didn't want to add it earlier or else it would get missing in my stew, and there is no waakye stew without cow skin so I didn't want to risk that. I allowed it to simmer through for another 20 minutes. Yes, that's how long it takes for me to cook my waakye stew. And after, I fried some eggs and some fish and placed it on top just like home, and just look at that. The color changed to a bit brown, just like the waakye stew we all know. Look at the egg, the meat. This stew was so good, I had to keep eating and going for more. Once it was done, of course I had to pair it with some good waakye. If you haven't seen the recipe for my waakye, please click on the link above now. Of course, with some fried plantain just like home. So I'm just going for a pick of the meat, and of course I'm going for the big one because I did almost all the work and I deserve a very fair share. So I'm just serving it just like home. You can see my leaf. I'm going for 1 egg. Trust me, this waakye stew is even better than the roadside one, the one you know from the Zongo and by the gutter. Trust me, you have to try it, okay? This was just so good, so good. You have to try it, okay? And without trying, you wouldn't understand what I'm talking about. And of course, what is waakye stew and waakye itself without some good shito? If you want to see the recipe for this shito, click on the link above now for the easiest way to make the perfect and tastiest shito or black chili sauce. This looks good. I want it again. I think I'm going to cook it again. So I'm just going to wrap it just like home. This leaf is one of the healthiest leaves we serve our waakjes in back home, and just look at the end results, guys. Tell me you're not going to try this. You definitely have to try it, and if you do try it, don't forget to tag us on your Instagram status at Debsy's Delight. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. I love you all, but God loves you the most. Bye for now.